We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
It's the Weiliotis podcast.
I like it.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Weiliotis podcast. Today I'm excited to be here today because we've had a little bit of a hiatus, but I'm glad we're back because for the first time ever, we're doing a little bit of I don't know what you'd call it, a little bit of a retrospective, I guess, or just we're talking about a lot of movies today, not just one. We're digging into zombie movies finally, so a genre we both love, and there's plenty of movies we kind of love and hate within it, but kind of, we want to talk about how, these certain movies exemplify the genre and how some of them maybe don't in our opinions. But before we get into all that, let me introduce, of course, my co-host here, the one and only Mikey Wheel. How you doing today, man?
Hey, what's going on? We had another hiatus. We've had busy lives, but we're back with, I believe this is episode 9.
Yeah, I'm in pain. Just from
Yeah.
like working a lot. But I'm good. I'm glad to be here. It's good to be back.
Yeah. Episode 9 of the Weiliotis podcast. As always, we have to point out it has nothing to do with Ray Liotta. It's just our two names, Weiliotis and Wheel, put together. Although one day we will probably cover Ray Liotta's most, what would you say, under-noticed movie, B movie, starring Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes. Yes.
What's the deal with bees?
I mean, honey, where does that come from?
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
It's cool to be here and doing this one. We're gonna get some guests lined up for some new episodes. We'll probably, let's be honest, do our own Godzilla and King Kong episode. I think they'll kind of deserve its own when it comes out, and I think it comes out in a week. Some people have early access, some do not. But let's kind of go over what we've been watching and movie news, kind of get that stuff out of the way, because I know you and I have hours and hours of zombie movies and shows to talk about.
Yeah, and I want to point out that this, might be like a part 1 essentially, because there's so many movies within the genre, so I'm sure we can we'll make more videos about it, maybe discussing sequels or similar movies within the genre, but either way, there's a lot to talk about. But let's bring that up. What have you watched recently? Anything good? Movies, TV shows?
More TV shows. I just started watching Fringe, which is the J.J. Abrams kind of X-Files show. Takes place in Boston, which is cool because I live right outside of Boston, and it's kind of about these FBI agents and kind of evil, well, not evil, but a crazy scientist who deal with everything the FBI kind of doesn't know how to solve on its own. So I mean, teleportation and bugs inside of people, and I mean, there's just other universes. It's a very trippy show, and it's very interesting. So
yeah, I've seen various episodes. I remember watching it actually back when it was on, and it is a good show. I like everyone in it. Anna Torv, I think she's really good. And
the main one, Joshua Jackson.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm on season 2 right now. There's only 3 seasons. It kind of dropped in its ratings. But yeah, I just I've been watching that. That's kind of my not during work. I watch that, and then my wife and I are starting to catch up on A Million Little Things that just came back, and we started watching Billions as we wait for Succession to come back, and then Teen Mom 2, of course. We watch a lot of stuff at night. I'm trying to think of other kind of the shows we watch. A couple game shows, to tell the truth, things like that. However, at work, I usually, I watch a sitcom always in the background. So I just finished up kind of I think his name is Greg Garcia. So he made Raising Hope. He made another show called The Guest Book, and then made the kind of most famously known My Name is Earl. So I went back and started watching Raising Hope, which I think we talked about on the podcast once Cloris Leachman passed away. And then I moved over to his show, The Guest Book, which I didn't even know was him. And then I was like, all right, I got to watch My Name is Earl all the way through. So I just binged that. And now I'm rewatching 30 Rock for probably the 30th time, just in the background of work. But that's what I've been watching. I'm trying to think of movies. the new Wrong Turn movie. I can't talk about it enough. I could do a whole episode on it. It's by the same writer as the original. It's nothing like the original. It's a completely different movie. And if you're looking for a good horror movie that's not disturbing, as disturbing as like the originals, highly recommend Wrong Turn.
Did that just come out? Is that like
just came out?
Oh,
Yeah, brand new
okay.
movie. And then
Nice.
also I watched Hunter Hunted. Kind of a horror thriller kind of movie out in the woods. That was all right. One of the most twisted endings I've ever seen in a movie. I'm trying to think of what else for movies. I think that pretty much does it. What about you? TV movies? What have you been watching?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of good movies in recently. One of them being this animated Japanese film called Perfect Blue, which is by director Satoshi Kon, I believe, Satoshi Kon, and he has quite the filmography from what I've seen. I know a lot of, I've seen a lot of talk of his name for years because his films have been hugely inspirational in Darren Aronofsky. So Perfect Blue, for instance, inspired Black Swan, and like after watching it, it's very apparent why. Pretty much just follows a pop singer who decides to transition to acting, but in doing so, she kind of has an identity crisis, and while this is happening, there's a stalker who's kind of following her online diary and also believes that she's like destroying her image. So he like wants to like trap her and like, have this like pop version of her forever. It's a really weird movie, but really well done because it kind of blurs the line between like what's her reality and what's dream. So it kind of catches you off guard constantly. And it's really well animated. I'm excited to check out more of that guy's work for sure. That was a great one. I also rewatched Donnie Darko, which I have not seen in
Really?
quite a long time. Yeah. Do you like that movie?
Beyond love Donnie Darko. I mean, it's one of the best movies ever made. We watched it a bunch in high school in one of my classes, just randomly.
Yeah.
But yeah, Donnie Darko is brilliant. I mean, it was so original for its time. It still is. I've been curious to watch the sequel, but I don't want it to like ruin the Donnie Darko universe for me. There's a sequel called S. Darko about his sister Samantha, and I'm surprised they made it. I think nobody ever talks about the sound mixing and engineering in that movie. When Frank the Bunny talks, the bass and the vibration and the feeling you get. I mean, when Frank talks in that movie, it makes you just get goosebumps. Like, it's terrifying.
I agree.
Like I've wanted to recreate that somehow in some video or something because it's unlike anything that's been done, and it just immediately like gets you just really creeped out.
For real, yeah. It's like sound design in general is great in that movie, and I feel like you feel trapped like when he talks. Like he has you in his gaze almost, and yeah, holds up extremely well. Obviously like it's such a like big movie for Jake Gyllenhaal and his sister as well, Maggie, and like it's just it's like it's so good though. It's
Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen too. I completely forgot he was in that.
Yep.
And that was like Freaks and Geeks era too, like
Yeah.
or like at least like a year after it, I guess. But no, great movie. And yes, actually, that movie came out 2001. I just realized, but I was gonna say
Yeah.
it still feels very much like late 90s, and I'm sure it was filmed in that time anyway. But
Yeah, Seth Rogen went from Freaks and Geeks to writing for Ollie G to running Hollywood, essentially.
yeah,
So
now
the
he's gonna
Donnie-
be in a Spielberg movie apparently.
Really? The Donnie Darko part was like his kind of limbo, I think, where he was like, all right, what am I going to do next? And then after that, just kind of, runs Hollywood, which is fair because he makes some of the funniest and best content out there. Spielberg, what movie is that?
What's that?
What's the Spielberg thing he's casting?
So I don't know. There's a read an article recently on Deadline or something about Spielberg, I think, making a movie slightly or like loosely based on his life experiences. And I think he wants, like, I don't know, like apparently he wants Seth Rogen to be like a main character in it. So like have a main role in his movie, which like, I don't know. At this point, I think that sounds kind of cool, honestly. It's kind of cool for him to be like getting to potentially get this role. And he's already worked with numerous other big directors at this point, like Danny Boyle for like Steve Jobs. And, like he's already had these like impressive, like, little meteor roles to deal with. But he's also, he is also, in my opinion, he really is like one of the funnier people in Hollywood for sure.
Imagine being Seth Rogen and being like excited to be in a Spielberg film. Like you've been in everything under the sun, but you're like still pushing for that like Spielberg moment. And I just have to point out too, Danny Boyle, who we're going to talk about, of course, tonight. Danny Boyle, I don't know if they're as verses as I think they are or make them out to be, but Boyle and Aronofsky are two of the best directors of all time. And like I love how they're kind of up against each other at the Oscars. I mean, I don't think they were the exact same year, but Train Spotting and Requiem for a Dream, very similar movies. And then I think
Oh, 2010,
Slumdog.
Black Swan in 127 Hours.
Yep.
And so that was the same year, and I'm pretty sure they were both nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah. Yep. They've been up
Respectively.
against each other a few times. I think I'm trying to think of other ones. Slumdog and maybe Noah or something like that.
No, Noah was like Noah was like 2014, I think. And Slumdog was 2008.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So wait, did he make anything 2008? I don't know.
Slumdog's one of the best movies of all
Well,
time.
Slumdog. So that was Danny Boyle. Yeah, that movie's great for sure.
I
I'm thinking Darren Aronofsky. What did he make around that time?
I love his screenplay writer too. I think Simon Bufo, I think is the name, or Bufo. But yeah, I remember like because I really wanted to be a screenplay writer back in college, and I started following screenplay writers. And I remember reading about like Danny Boyle partnering a lot with this guy for 28 Days Later and a few other movies. And then that guy got tapped to write the like Hunger Games sequel movie, like Catching Fire, and he made like the most money like a screenplay writer had made in a very long time, which was just really cool to see that like a screenplay writer is getting like recognition and paid as they should be, you know, because it's such an interesting thing when actors make $20 million for a movie, but the like, you know, writer gets, you know,
I know, and like
$300,000.
They're literally like everything. I mean, without the writer, without the script, there's no movie. So like, you know, quite literally the backbone of it all.
And we're almost done with our movie. We have like 2 more scenes to film in our movie.
I'm excited.
We're going to start shopping it around. And by that, I mean showing it to our friends who are kind of in the business. But
no, it'll be good to get some more opinions on it because like it's been fun writing it. And like even recently, just kind of writing, finishing up the end, it's been like, it's been a lot of fun.
I see the whole entire movie in my head. And I know that like most movies in Hollywood get bought and then put on the shelf and never get greenlit. So it's, you know, such a far off thing, but I'm like, I would love to do that. Or like this summer, just like we go to like a lake in New Hampshire and just film it on our own for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd just be so cool.
Either way, yeah, I want to see it get made for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than those movies, oh yeah, and I watched Anchorman 1 and 2 recently. Just good, funny movies I want to watch. And I still love them. I'm a fan of Adam McKay. You know, I really like those movies, and I really, really love The Big Short too. Vice was okay, but
I liked Vice a lot.
Yeah, Vice was fun. I guess at this point I kind of like how meta he gets with his movies because it is kind of poking fun at himself, and like usually the jokes do land for the most part, but I just think like The Big Short, I don't know, to me like that the telling of that story was really well done, and how it was mixed in with a lot of these like weird editing choices and whatnot, and like how they had just random actors kind of pop in and provide like their 2 cents on something. But yeah, no, Anchorman 1 and 2 hold up really well. I think they're really funny.
I feel Vice and The Big Short are not movies I would normally watch or care about. But, you know, they're Oscar nominated. So I'm like, all right, I want to watch them for the Oscars. But then also they're Adam McKay. I mean, he was such a goofball director for so long. And, you know, him and Will Ferrell produced Succession on HBO. Like, they're behind a lot of things that you wouldn't expect. Same with The Lonely Island. I mean, Akiva Yorma and Andy Samberg are behind like so many comedy TV shows you wouldn't even know. And you start watching at the beginning, it shows them. Will Ferrell and Adam McKay are the same way. Yeah, Anchorman. I mean, 1 of course is a classic, but 2 is great too. The fight scene in the sequel is great because there's just so many people, so many actors that
out of
nowhere.
Like Kanye West and Will Smith
Drake.
and
I think Drake, right?
Drake, Liam Neeson, like just all these people, like all these random actors.
Yeah. What about for movie news, TV news? I mean, I know there's one thing we're going to talk about that is going to kind of lead into our episode here, but yeah, what else is there going on?
Well, before that, I'll say, well, like I mentioned earlier, there's that potential Seth Rogen, Steven Spielberg collaboration, which, like I said, at this point, bring it on, because I think it's amazing that Spielberg still makes as many movies as he does at his age. You know, like he's still bringing out a movie every couple of years, it seems like. And for the most part, you know, they're still really good. I mean, they're still, I think, usually better than most, like, other blockbusters, a little more meaty, a little more substantive, even if he still is pretty sentimental. But I'm excited for it if it does actually happen.
I'm all about Ready Player One. I mean, it's the first trilogy I believe Spielberg ever signed on to direct, or at least the first sequel he's ever directed. I mean, Avatar. Oh, there's some news there. Avatar and Ready Player One in theaters were the coolest movies I've ever seen in my life in theaters. I mean, and if you didn't see them in IMAX and or 3D, then you probably didn't feel that excitement. But I mean, they were just like, I cannot wait for the next Ready Player One. I mean, they were just such advances in cinema. Did you see both of those in theater?
Wait, what was the other one besides Ready Player One?
Avatar.
Oh yeah, Avatar, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
so far in my life, I don't think there's yeah, in my like life going to the movies, there's been anything quite as big as Avatar. Like,
Yeah.
I still remember what that feels like how big that was, and like I'm sure, honestly, like maybe not to the same degree, obviously, but the fact that there apparently are like multiple sequels being made and being close to done, I feel like
I don't want to talk about it.
I know it's like it's still crazy to me that that's happening. But all right,
There
so a sequel.
five sequels lined up over the next 5 years, I believe, and they mostly take place underwater, so they're being filmed underwater. And James Cameron has people like Kate Winslet learning how to not breathe or how to breathe underwater for 6 minutes at a time. So
Yeah.
he's getting these people cast in the movie, and like they're not doing special effects. He's literally putting these actors and actresses in pools and having them film complete scenes underwater, and they're like defying the laws of human abilities and learning how to like hold their breath for 6 minutes to do scenes.
Yeah, imagine being a director and having your like main actor like imagine just having Kate Winslet like be underwater for 6 minutes. Like
Yeah, I mean,
I'd be so fucking scared. I don't know. I don't
imagine
know.
directing her in any movie, but now you're trying to direct her in like this, and
You're
it's
trying
like,
to drown her basically. You're like
yeah. The lawsuits that could come out of that movie. But yeah, I was gonna say for movie news, Avatar was just re-released in China and has made a couple hundred billion since coming out there, and just took back the place of highest grossing movie from the last Avengers movie. So I don't
Oh.
think James Cameron did it to take back his place. I think it was some kind of thing about like it was banned or didn't come out in China the first time or something. But it's out in theaters in China, which makes me want to just go there and see it in IMAX 3D for another time. But it's being redone. It's being re-released in China, and now it's taken back the spot of the highest grossing movie of all time, which I'm excited about. Avengers is cool and all, but I mean Avatar.
Yeah,
Avatar.
I know.
Avatar.
Yeah. For all the complaints, I still think Avatar is pretty great, and
Mhm.
I actually have not seen Ready Player One. I still got to see it, and I've heard some really crazy things about it. I'm interested. I don't know. I don't know why I didn't see it. It's one of those movies I just didn't see when it came out for some reason. But anyway, another bit of information news I want to bring up, and this also kind of ties into today's episode. But I think this was a couple weeks ago now, but how Shudder I guess acquired the rights for the amusement park, which was that lost George A. Romero film.
Mhm.
So I'm interested in that for sure. I don't know much about it, but in general, like just I'm always interested in like lost movies. I was talking to Mikey, like we were talking like a couple days ago about I was telling you about that Lon Chaney movie, I forget what it's called. There's an really old like movie from the 20s, a horror movie that's been missing forever, or like at least the original print of it. So I think there exists like a cut of it you can watch, but it's kind of like the way I think they use like scenes from other movies or something to kind of make it like a full like movie. But that original like film reel is missing or whatever. So I'm always interested in stuff like that. So I'll have to watch. I don't know if it's on. I assume it's on there now, or it will be soon. But
I think I have Shudder, or I might have. I need to get it if I don't have it, because I know there's just like that is my channel right there. That is like the gold mine of my favorite kind of things. And there's so much good horror out these days too. I mean, I always loved IFC Midnight. I don't know if you ever watched that, but like every
yeah.
year they'd release like 10 new horror movies. And I think that they just talked about releasing a movie that's like an 8-hour movie or something. It's like Blumhouse is working with somebody else to start releasing like 8-hour movies or something.
Oh,
Which
nice.
is super interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some good zombie movie stuff out there. I mean, news especially. I mean, you have the new Resident Evil movie Resident Evil's being rebooted and being recast. I know Robbie Amell is one of the actors in it, and I think that they're covering the first two video games, which I just started playing 2, which they, brought back for PlayStation 4. So I've been playing that again. However, we'll get more into it, but I'm wondering how a reboot of that franchise is going to be. And then, of course, I know you wanted to talk about another very hyped up zombie movie, one that falls into the zombie heist category, which is something you've never heard of before. It's like a genre. I mean, I'm trying to think of other genres you could do like that. But yeah, I mean...
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago now, they put out the trailer for Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, which, has been in the news for a little bit. I remember like a year or two ago, maybe about a year and a half ago, some images surfaced from the set. And, it originally had Chris D'Elia in it. And then that was a whole controversy where they replaced the actor with
Tig Notaro.
Tig Notaro. Yeah, which is interesting. I'm actually kind of excited to see that.
She has a show called Under the Rock on Funny or Die, I believe. She doesn't know actors and actresses, so she has people come on her show and she has to guess who they are. And they're like very big actors and actresses, and she has no idea who they are, and she interviews them to try to like guess who. It's very, very funny. Tig Notaro, if you haven't watched her stand up before, she is one of the best probably of all time. Have you watched her stand up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, her stand up is good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
She's so dry and it's just, she's very original. I love her. But the trailer looks fantastic. I think I watched it a week or two ago.
Yeah, it's cool. And I think Vegas is such a fun setting for it. So yeah, to have a heist movie in Vegas during a zombie apocalypse, it's all these cool concepts. There's this really awesome setup. So, and I think Zack Snyder, like, it's funny, I didn't even mention earlier, but I also did recently watch Batman versus Superman for the first time. I know you hate it, Mikey. I know a lot of people hate it.
You're saying a lot of people hate it like you didn't hate it. So now I want to know your thoughts.
But well, I know a lot of people that love it too. Two of my roommates generally like it a lot, and I don't know. I don't.
You should move out. You should move out.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I'm
I'm gonna go live in my car. I'll record from a Walmart parking lot next week.
Where? What?
All right, here's the thing. I'll say it. I don't think it was that good. I think it's it's definitely a mess of a movie, and I think its ideas are. I don't know. Here's the one thing: the Martha scene at the end. How Batman. So basically, the whole movie is set up. Which, by the way, like, I can kind of appreciate like a cynical approach to like these superheroes, because it's funny, after watching The Boys, watching this movie, it's like I can see how many ideas they kind of ripped off of it, because I'm like, yeah, Superman, is still kind of creepy in this movie. Like, he's not like how like most people envision Superman, and I don't know, I can appreciate like a different approach to the material, and obviously like it looks cool. Zack Snyder can definitely, like, he knows how to shoot a movie, but like a lot of the ideas I think are like really screwy. Like, again, like the whole movie is set up as Batman like wanting to basically take out Superman because he fears for a future in which he causes the apocalypse, in which like the majority of the human race is destroyed because of him. So he considers Superman the real threat, but then in an instant at the end, like right before he kills him, he learns that his mother's going to die, and his mother has the same name as his mother that died back when Bruce Wayne was a kid. So like it's this one moment that like switches and like makes him reconsider killing him. But like right after that scene, he's just like, all right, he's my friend now. He's like, we're friends. Like, he just kind of like Batman kind of just drops the conflict altogether, and then it's all about Doomsday. And Doomsday is also like such a big part of Superman, and they kind of condense his thing to like 20 minutes. It's
what
like
actor was that?
What, Doomsday?
Yeah.
I don't know if they did mocap. I mean, Doomsday is like a fucking like Gollum looking thing, like a.
I have not. I saw that movie once, I think, in theaters. I mean, obviously, this episode's going to be filled with many of spoilers, including my background here. And I will say that. Yeah, we're giving away spoilers, obviously, on our podcast. The fact that a billionaire inventor killed a superhero from outer space whose only weakness is a rock. Come on.
Right.
Even if the whole like first hour and a half of the movie is great, and then the last little while where Superman dies, sure. But the whole movie I just couldn't stand. But the fact that Batman could take down Superman, how?
Yeah. I mean, like, I will say that scene at the end is pretty dope. That fight scene when Batman's finally going to kill him. He has his like mecha like iron suit or whatever, and he has all these like he has this like a little fortress set up. He has this like um little like honing device that like holds Superman in place, and then he destroys it, and then he shoots these like little canisters filled with like a gassed version of the kryptonite that like really weakens him. But I do agree, because I feel like if you were actually Superman, like I don't know, I feel like the second you had the ability to like get on somebody, you could pretty much kill him instantly. Even Batman,
he
like,
could flick him.
yeah,
He could flick him. He could punch him. He could blow on him. He could
yeah,
knee him in the shin and just break his legs.
yeah.
I
Well, I
mean,
mean, and they demonstrate that too, because there's literally a scene like in that fight scene, like, and it's pretty funny, honestly. Like when they get up right in each other's face, Superman literally like flicks his hand like he's shooing a fly, and then like fucking like throws Batman like across like the entire courtyard. He like like, so like it's kind of funny. They do like obviously show that he's like immensely powerful compared to even Batman, but like I do agree. The whole story, like ultimately when you kind of realize that, like I don't know, you kind of realize in other versions of the comic book, I feel like they were more like they might have had their differences, but like they weren't gonna like it wasn't gonna be like all out war. Like Batman was never really interested in just like completely killing Superman, because he felt like he was overall a danger to the entire like face of humanity. So like I don't know. I don't
they're
fucking know.
saying there will be one winner in Godzilla versus Kong. That it's not going to be like a tie or one. So I'm excited for that, and I was excited for that in Batman versus Superman. I mean, it's a versus movie. You don't want it to be a movie where at the end a new bad guy shows up and they're like, "Let's team up." Like, I like that, and like you were saying, the weirder Superman, the kind of Superman we don't recognize in Batman versus Superman. I can't recommend it enough. James Gunn has made 2 movies based off of his dreams. He wrote both of them and produced them. He didn't direct either. One is called Belco Experiment, and it's about this office down in maybe Mexico or Cuba or something. It's a American office that goes down there to work, and they wind up, all the windows get boarded up one day, and somebody on the loudspeaker says, only one of you can walk out of this building alive. And it's just a battle royale in an office building with John McGinley, is that his name, from Scrubs, John Gallagher Jr. I mean, everybody's in this movie. Michael Rooker, as well as Sean Gunn's brother.
Oh yeah.
They're in it together, and there's that movie, and then there's another one called Brightburn. And Brightburn is basically what would happen if Superman found out he had powers and only used them for bad. It's an extremely twisted, like hour and 20-minute quick superhero movie that is like not even like it's very similar to The Boys in the way where like it's not like, oh, this person's like Superman or like Captain America, like that they're obviously going after that character. In Brightburn, it's a boy who lands in a farm in a field, and his parents raise him, and then he learns about his powers and is kind of angsty. Superhero horror movie, but like I said, if anybody wants to watch it, it's super disturbing up to the very last scene, but it's like very cool and that kind of like a story you've never seen before.
Yeah, I want to see that. I thought it looked really good when trailers came out for it, and like it seems like most people generally like it a lot. And it's a really unique, like never really been done before idea. So it's cool to see. I gotta check that one out.
Very R-rated too. I mean, that's the thing, is it's very different than you watch like these superhero movies, and they're PG-13. Kids are going to be there, so you don't really like show somebody dying. You show them maybe get like hit with something, and then it cuts to another thing. So like that's the difference between Brightburn and your typical kind of campy, kitschy action movie or superhero movie. It's very R-rated, the whole movie. But I'd be interested to see what you think about it. That and Belco Experiment. I mean, Belco Experiment is just the best. Oh, I forget the name of it. I'm just thinking of like horror movies now. There's a new kind of Saw movie coming out. First there was Cube, then there was Saw. There's a new movie coming out. I gotta remember the name of it, but it's basically a girl wakes up in a warehouse of different rooms, except this one has creatures in it now too. So it kind of combines, the creature horror movie with the kind of torture, trap kind of movie.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, Now, if you're listening, if you've been listening this far, and you can't tell already, we tend to go off track a lot, so we've already talked about so much stuff. But yeah,
And that's our time.
but anyway, Army of the Dead looks great. No,
Army of the Dead. I mean, it's like Ocean's 11 meets zombies, which is really cool. And I don't think, of course, this was taken from that, but there was a movie a few years ago called Tornado Heist.
Is that what it's called? Tornado Heist?
No, I forget the name, but it's basically during a tornado, people decide to go and like rob a bank. So I was like, all right, this is kind of similar to that. I like that. But the trailer, I mean, it does not hold back. They're kind of World War Z zombies, like they're fast zombies in this movie. And one of the things I'm most excited for in the movie is Garrett Dillahunt, who's like just one of the best character actors. He's the dad in Raising Hope, and he's in the Last House on the Left remake. He's just in everything. He's one of the main characters on Fear the Walking Dead. So it's really cool to kind of see him in Fear the Walking Dead now be in this movie, because it's kind of like a universe he's familiar with. So I'm super excited. When does it come out?
I don't know. I want to say it's sometime in April.
Oh yeah, it's coming to HBO, isn't it?
Is it HBO Max? I think it is. Yeah.
Uh,
Or no, is it Netflix?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. Yeah. So it won't be in theaters then, huh?
No, and the release will be May 21st. So
It should be in theaters.
I agree. It
It's
should
like
be.
a movie like that. Yeah. I'm hoping to see Godzilla and Kong in theaters. I'll be like fully vaccinated by next month. That kind of like 2-week period after. But I don't think I'm going to be able to wait to go and see Kong and Godzilla. Like I'm probably just going to watch it on HBO Max, and then if I like it enough, go and actually see it in theaters. But yeah, let's kick it off. I mean, we're talking about Army of the Dead. That's what it's called, right? Zack Snyder one.
The one for this episode. Yeah. So
No, the one in Vegas. What's that one called?
that one's Army of the Dead. That's the one
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
out. That's
yeah,
the one coming
yeah.
out in May.
Yeah.
Because originally the idea for this episode came. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while. Like, why don't we do a zombie episode? But I really wanted to watch Day of the Dead, which is George A. Romero's third, call it installment, because they're all kind of very loosely based, if that. In his trilogy, it was Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and then Day of the Dead. And Day of the Dead's, they're all very unique, and I like them because they're all very different. Obviously, Day of the Dead and Dawn share some similarities, but I think they all are very different, even aesthetically and even in their ideas and what they're trying to do. And they're all, I mean, one thing they share, at least the one thing that Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead share, is that they're very groundbreaking, at least for their special effects. Tom Savini doing some pretty legendary gore effects, and especially for Dawn of the Dead coming out in the late 70s, that movie has some pretty intense scenes. Heads blowing up, heads being shot off, arms being taken off, all that. And obviously, for the time, it's you can tell that some of the effects are a little dated, but it still holds up extremely well.
What was the one that we watched?
So the first one, like I said, that was Day of the Dead.
Is that the one that we watched?
Yeah, that was the one where. So in this one, it follows a team of scientists and military members who are kind of trapped in a missile silo. And while being trapped there, they kind of created their own little separate community, just trying to survive. Armies protecting them. Scientists are attempting to, or at least one scientist in particular is attempting to communicate and change the nature of a zombie and kind of reform him, bring him back to being a human. And, while this is going on, there's growing instability between one of the head guys who's kind of running the whole operation in the military, and then with another female who is kind of also a scientist and also kind of trying to keep out for the more regular folk in the missile silo. So, like other, again, George A. Romero zombie movies, there's a lot of human conflict in the situations where people are trapped. They're forced to make very split second decisions, and obviously they're kind of forced to deal with other people who are going crazy, which to me that's one of the better parts of this movie. I think even though it's I forget what the guy's name is. I gotta look it up. One of the kind of I guess the head guy, Joe Pilato. He was the instructor or the sergeant who, even from the start, he's very campy. He's screaming everything. He's super over the top. He's not understanding what the scientists are trying to do. But I liked his character a lot because I thought he was just going more and more crazy as the movie went on. And I don't know, this is just a very 80s movie. There's a lot of weird shit in this movie, and a lot of, like I said, a lot of crazy gore too, especially at the end. But I know you weren't the biggest fan of it. I can't say I I love it. It's not my favorite. It's probably my least favorite out of all of them, honestly. I like Night and Dawn more, but I don't know. There's still something about this that was like redeeming, especially I don't know, especially for a zombie movie. What it's trying to do.
It took us 9 episodes to disagree with each other.
I
I was
know.
watching it. Tom was like, "Let's do this one," and I'm watching it, and I'm just texting him every 10 minutes, and I was like, "What are you putting me through? Why am I watching this?" And I'm one of those people who would rather just watch the newer version of a movie in IMAX 3D than watch the like 1920s black and white silent version of it. So for me, it's hard to watch this after all the zombie stuff I watch, TV and movies. It was just boring too. I mean, the whole like first hour of the hour and a half movie is like them in a classroom or lab arguing with each other. Like there was no zombies for half of it. And then the second half of the movie more than makes up for it. But what I did like was that it definitely, you can tell what it inspired. I mean, for me, my background, although this is from Train to Busan, my favorite zombie movie of all time is 28 Days Later. Danny Boyle.
Yeah, which we both did you because I watched that recently for this episode because that's also like a personal favorite.
I've not rewatched it, but I don't think I need to. I think I can, still. I just love it so much. But
yeah,
I will say that at the end of Day of the Dead, the good guys get away and they get in a helicopter, and then it cuts to them like in another location on a beach. And you see where they've like tried to find salvation, which is the same ending as 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later, the three of them get away, and then it cuts to, I think, Cillian Murphy waking up on an island, and they're making the giant signs to try to get the attention of people flying over.
Yeah.
So I like that. And
there are those similarities, for sure, because it is, even though this is like a more of a cult, like Day of the Dead's more, I feel like more cult than Dawn. And and so I feel like it's you're right, in a sense it has inspired a lot. And like I said, especially for like, I think for the time, like I said, I think these were some of the best like zombie and practical effects. I mean, this one actually has some pretty disgusting stuff. Like you're watching people's like intestines being pulled out and stuff, and all that kind of stuff.
The first death was the best, I think. The first zombie was the best, and then the rest kind of like got weaker and weaker. But there was nonstop gore and people being ripped apart and limbs, and that's what I like in a zombie movie. But something else that I did like about this that I feel inspired 28 Days Later, Walking Dead, everything, is that it's not just a zombie movie. Like they're not really facing off against the zombies in this movie. They're facing off against the army, which is 100% what 28 Days Later is about. 28 Days Later is kind of a zombie movie, but it's kind of where Walking Dead got by season 2 or 3 or 4, is that it no longer is about zombies. It's about them fighting other humans, other people. And I think that some people, I still watch Walking Dead. I started and binged all of Fear the Walking Dead last year. For me, I'm a firm believer of like, it's realistic. It's realistic. Look at the world now without zombies. If we had a zombie apocalypse, the zombies would not be who you would be afraid of after a couple months, after a couple years. You'd be afraid of the people who are, living, because there's no law, living above the law now. You'd be afraid of the army if they're, don't have the best intentions, like in this movie.
I mean, clearly at that point too, like, the remaining survivors after an apocalypse, like they're obviously the people that, I don't want to even just say the strongest because they could have cheated and like killed other people to get ahead or whatever. But like, arguably, yeah, you're dealing with people that maybe have used insane tactics to stay alive. So like you're running into like a military, a band of a military, or anything like that would be kind of scary for sure.
Fear the Walking Dead had that maybe season 2. The guy who plays Mickey from Shameless was in an episode, and it was basically soldiers who were taking just normal people, bringing them to their compound, having them get bitten by zombies, and then like making bets on how quickly they'd turn into a zombie. But it was also for research to see like how quickly somebody who is 6 feet would turn into a zombie, or somebody who was overweight would turn into a zombie. So like they labeled it research. But that is definitely what I enjoy about these kind of movies. I think if you look at every zombie movie, it's not just about that. I mean, like, you watch Fear the Walking Dead, every season there's an antagonist. It's never been a zombie. It's not like a monster movie where, Godzilla is the bad guy. It's, a person who's the bad guy. And I think it just says so much about our world. And I think, a movie I'd highly recommend, there's a movie called Aftershock So Green Inferno, I think we need to do an Eli Roth episode. After Green Inferno came out, Eli used a lot of the same cast to make a movie called Aftershock, or maybe it was vice versa. But basically, Aftershock is a movie about, where does it take place? It's basically there's an earthquake and it rattles the jail in this town, and all of the jail cells break open. So now you have all of these escaped convicts wreaking havoc on these people in this town. I think it follows like, young adults who are vacationing there or something. Super super graphic twisted movie, but it's also one of those movies where you're like, oh, this is not about the earthquake. This is about the people who are taking advantage of the fact that there was an earthquake.
Yeah.
And I like that. That's
And
what I
so-
like.
Yeah,
People
right.
complain about The Walking Dead and they go, I hated season 2 because they were on a farm. And it's like, okay, so if there's a zombie apocalypse, are you just gonna like drive around for the rest of your life? Or are you gonna find salvation at some point and go, oh, my uncle's got a cabin up north, we're gonna go settle there, and that's where we're gonna live it out, so like that's where I always hated people who got stopped watching it because they're like, it's too boring, or it's too, they're just in a cabin or on a farm, and I'm like, that's realistic though. That's what I
Yeah,
like about it.
it is, and you're right. Like, it's telling of every zombie movie where you're right. It's ultimately a bad global situation, and then it's deciding like who, or figuring out who's taking advantage of it, and who's gonna like cause anarchy, who's going to wreak havoc and like like destroy all laws and everything like that, which is present in all these movies. I mean, like I said, we started. Like, I wanted to originally just do Day of the Dead, but then I'm like, I started watching more zombie movies, and I said like, no, like there's more to watch, and like they're all connected in their own funny ways. But I don't know, ultimately, like, to kind of breach into other bigger questions, and then other movies, like what kind of drew you to, like, because I feel like most people, especially anyone who likes horror movies, like zombies. Like, it's such a unique idea, but like for you specifically, like, what drew you to like when did you start watching more movies? Like, what kind of drew you to like liking zombies in the first place? Was it 28 Days Later, or was it like any older movies, or
That's
what?
a good question. I mean, my mom raised my sister and I on horror movies. So like Twilight Zone. We watched a lot of Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah,
We
same.
watched a lot of vampires growing up. I think we got to do a vampire episode. And that's a question I want to talk about on this episode is, do we talk about I Am Legend for this? Are they zombies? Are they vampires? What are
Ooh,
they?
That's a good one.
Yeah,
We
because
could
it's
breach that.
they're their own thing. But I grew up on those things. I didn't really grow up on a lot of zombie stuff, but I think maybe video games was a good introduction. I mean, Silent Hill and Resident Evil as a kid, playing those games was so twisted. The Resident Evil games, like you'd have the giant spiders and all these creatures and the rabid dogs and all of this. So I watched a lot of that. But in 8th grade, I very much remember watching Resident Evil. And I saw the first 2 or 3 Resident Evil movies. I've never seen another one. 28 Days Later is my favorite zombie movie of all time. It's just a beautiful film. But Resident Evil, the first one, is a very, very close second runner-up for my favorite zombie stuff. So I watched that in 8th grade, and I think that really kind of turned me on to the zombie, movies and all of that. And then I think, when did 28 Days Later come out?
It was like early 2000s, right? I want to say 2002, maybe.
Yeah, and I love Cillian Murphy. I love Danny
Yeah.
Boyle. I don't think I watched that being like, I love Danny Boyle, but I didn't even know who he was probably. But now I have such a love for him that it makes that movie even better. And it's, also one of those movies that's not about zombies, which I really like. I kind of wish, I know Danny Boyle's talked about 23 months later, about making that for a couple years now. He wants to helm that and take that over. I wish 28 Weeks Later was a different movie. I do. I get that, like, sometimes you call a movie a sequel just to get people to buy tickets. Maybe it's not even written as the sequel, and then you slap the name on it. I just think 28 Weeks Later, although I'd like to go back and rewatch it because of how big the cast is now, I just think that it kind of like took away from it. I mean, 28 Days
Yeah.
Later should have stayed as its own thing forever.
Because I watched 28 Weeks Later recently, which I had already seen in the past, but like this is the first time seeing it probably since like 2009 or something like that. And you're right. Like I think separately from 28 Days Later, it holds up for the most part, because viscerally I think it's pretty fantastic. Like the introduction, the intro scene for Weeks Later is crazy graphic,
Is
and
that in the tunnel?
I think part of it is like I said, it's where he just starts off at someone's like farm or something.
Yeah.
And it's like a family, a bunch of people who have again come together, who probably like had found salvation in this homestead from away from everybody else. And a kid runs up to the door screaming for help. They let him in, but obviously the kid brings a bunch of zombies with him. So the house gets overrun. A bunch of people die in the process, and one guy gets away. Who, like months and months later, or weeks later, perhaps he starts this like he ends up being like the head in this city essentially. Like there's already like reconstruction going on. There's already like a part of this city that they're in that's being, there's still a good portion of the population left there. So like I don't know, like as a continuation, I guess it's okay. I'm not even against the idea of like continuing this world, because like the one that Danny Boyle created was so amazing and so graphic and scary that like part of me likes to see that, because even Weeks Later, again, I think has its moments, and also just has way more actors in it than I originally thought. Like as far as like notable people like Rose Byrne and what's her name, Imogen Poots and
Jeremy Renner.
Like all these people I had completely forgotten about. I'm pretty sure I watched these movies before any of them were like huge. So like it's fascinating to go back and see that.
I don't know enough about timeline where, like I can't say that The Boys was inspired by Brightburn, because I know Brightburn, or I know The Boys is a graphic novel. So I don't know if that came before Brightburn. I don't know timeline wise of everything, but what I will say, and anybody can comment on this video and tell me that the exact dates, but I would say 28 Days Later. Crap, I had a good point here. 28 Days Later. Yeah, the opening of 28 Days Later is Cillian Murphy waking up in the hospital, and he runs out into London, and all of London is empty. And it's kind of like I Am Legend, where they literally evacuated all of New York City to film, Will Smith. And The Walking Dead opens up the exact same way as 28 Days Later. So I know The Walking Dead has been around as a graphic novel forever. I don't know what got what from what inspiration, but 28 Days Later wakes up with Cillian Murphy in the hospital. The Walking Dead, the TV show, wakes up with Rick Grimes, Andrew Lincoln, who as a cop, he's a cop. He wakes up in the hospital and nobody's there. So same kind of opening. He's running through the hospital, nobody's there. He goes outside, nobody's there. So it's pretty much the exact same opening, which definitely pays homage to it, one or another, and I love that too. But 28 Days Later, I mean, up to the last scene is just so on your edge, the edge of your seat. I mean, the eye, the scene with the blood in the eye. I think that's what else I like about zombies, vampires, and all of this is like new ones come along that change the game. So some zombie movies, anybody who is dead comes back as a zombie. Other movies with a zombie apocalypse, it's not until after you've been bitten do you turn into a zombie. Some zombie movies, if you get scratched by a zombie, you turn into one. Some, if you get your arm bit, you can get it cut off and it won't get to your bloodstream. 28 Days Later, I think his name's Gleason.
Is it Brendan Gleeson?
Brendan Gleeson. Yeah,
he's in it.
Yeah, he looks up at a crow and blood from the crow drops into his eye and he turns into a zombie. Where The Walking Dead or other movies, that might not turn you into a zombie. So I really like that. A movie I'd highly recommend, I would call it, I don't think I coined this, but I'd call it Zomcom or Rom-Zom. But the movie, what's the one Nicholas Hoult we were talking about? Warm Bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Nicholas Hoult plays a zombie who gains a consciousness, and he falls in love with Annalie Tipton. Dave Franco's in it. I think what's his name? John Malkovich is in it. And it's just a very funny movie with a lot of gore and all of this, but it's a love story about a male zombie who falls in love with a woman, and all of her friends are trying to kill him, but he's trying to tell them, like, I'm different than them. And that's what I liked about Day of the Dead. That's what I did like. Is what was the name of the zombie in there that they tried to befriend?
Oh, Bub. It's Bub.
Yeah. Like where Bub finally breaks loose and gets his revenge and all of that. Like, I like that. I really like when movies kind of take that and say, hey, this person turned. Is there a way to turn them back? Is there a cure? That's what else I love about zombie movies. Is somebody gets bitten and they're like, don't kill me yet. Maybe there's a cure out there. which I think
You're
we
right.
should write something like this. Have you ever seen The Mist before?
Yeah, I've seen The Mist.
I've not. I've seen the end of The Mist, which is, remember how it ends?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the end of The Mist is the dad, his son, and two elderly people. They're driving off, and the monsters are still coming after them. And the dad finds out he has 3 bullets left in his gun. So he kills his son and the elderly couple and is like, I'll get killed by the monsters. Like, I'll suffer, but I'll put you guys out of your misery. And as soon as he kills the 3 of them, the SWAT teams and army come up and save him. And I mean, it's just like, what ending is like that? I mean, it's so twisted, but I think it'd be cool to kind of make a zombie movie or show where, you know, the main character gets bitten at the end and then somebody kills them before they turn, but then somebody shows up and is like, we have the cure. All you need to do is inject yourself and it gets rid of the zombie virus. Like, have we ever seen that before in a movie or show?
I'm pretty sure we have. Or I mean, like honestly, I'm not gonna lie. The first thing I thought of was like Romeo and Juliet, because like at the end of that, you know, he takes the vial or whatever right as he takes it, before he realizes that she's not dead, you know, and then she kills herself. But like, I know what you're saying. It's interesting how you're right. How the difference is how 28 days later, you're right. It's like a speck of blood. If it gets on like an open wound, you're done for. You're turning in like 5 seconds.
Yep.
But other movies, right? It's a lot. Even like Walking Dead, I feel like was a lot more gradual. Or I guess I feel like Walking Dead zombies, it depended more on the severity of the bite. Like, or like I feel like if you got bit in the neck, obviously you were gonna die out faster and turn into a zombie faster. But if you got bit in the arm, and if it was like just a tear of your skin, you might have a couple hours maybe.
Yeah.
But it's different. But yeah, I like that idea too of the potential of maybe even a whole movie. There could be a whole movie about someone being bit right in the beginning, and the whole movie is just them trying to find the cure, and like they're slowly turning, but like they could reverse it.
I would say it'd be really cool to see a movie of somebody gets bitten and like it's a constant movie. I don't know what you would call this term, but it takes place just over an hour and a half of somebody's life.
You have real time in like in the movie time.
Yeah, so you would have somebody get bitten in a zombie world. It wouldn't even be a horror movie, but it would just be following them for the next hour and a half of their life as they're slowly turning and what they're thinking about and what they're, you know, as they're turning. And then maybe you see a POV of some other person killing them. I mean, look at Train to Busan. I mean, this scene from Train to Busan almost made it my favorite zombie movie of all time. I think it
It's
almost
amazing.
took and James Wan is making an American version, which I would watch. I'm also excited for that. But Train to Busan, I don't have a big interest in Peninsula, the new kind of sequel that came out. It looks way more like badass Fast and Furious kind of movie.
Yeah.
But Train to Busan is just like one of the most gorgeous movies ever made. I love Snowpiercer the movie, so it's cool to
Oh,
kind of watch
same.
zombies on a train. But I mean the whole entire movie, the scene at the train station, and they're not afraid to kill off people in this. You know, a lot of zombie stuff, you know, Walking Dead or even a movie, they might kill one main character over the whole movie. I mean, this movie, everybody gets killed essentially, almost. Like, I mean, it's very. I mean, you watch the baseball players and all of this, and you're like, and also what I really like about these movies is it's not just you see the greed and you see the kind of way people react, and that's what gets people killed. So like some people in these movies get killed by getting trampled to death, or you know, somebody like at the end of The Descent, one of the best endings ever, gets hit in the leg with somebody, you know, so then they get taken by the zombie and the other person can get away. I don't know what that's happened in, but I love that where like it's not just you getting bitten and killed by a zombie who approaches you, it's more crowd masses and things like this happening where you get hit by a car and then a zombie gets you. Like, you know, everybody's frantic and their actions wind up getting you to get killed. But, you know, that's not always going to be, you know, I like that in movies too, where, you know, people's greed and selfishness leads to somebody else getting killed.
Yeah, and you know, I think Train to Busan demonstrates that perfectly, and it also demonstrates what again I like about zombie movies too. Myself is you're right. It's how people react. In this case, people are trapped in a situation that you probably would never want to be in a zombie apocalypse. You don't want it to be in one on a train going somewhere and crossing through all these different towns and cities that have various levels of zombies. So you're right. It hits people together fast. People have to make really rash decisions in the movie. And, obviously there's that one character that kind of, the bigger guy who has his differences at first, but then kind of learns to kind of work together as a team. So like there's actually really good like team group dynamics in this movie where it's again nice to just see like the goodness of humanity, people like just helping each other out, but also again seeing the greed as well.
I got to open up my notes. I took notes when I watched this movie.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, it's so good. And I didn't rewatch this. I saw this maybe about a year and a half ago, and it's funny. I watched this with my mom, who also she likes zombie stuff for sure. We watched Walking Dead for like 7 years.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, so she loved this. Like, I mean, she was like crying at the end, and I almost was too. Honestly, this had like this had an emotional beat at the end that was honestly like one of the strongest I've seen in a long time.
You're talking about Train to Busan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. It's a movie that's both like just kind of fun. It has its fun kind of typical zombie moments, but it's also a thriller. It's also it's a lot of things. And you're right. It has its like elements of Snowpiercer because they're essentially trapped on the train, and most of the spots they get off of, they are like completely overrun by zombies. So they kind of have to just continually stay on the train. So
like any zombie movie, people think there's salvation in the next town, in the next house, and they realize it just keeps getting worse. And that's what I liked about Train to Busan is it's just completely just gets more off the rails throughout the whole movie. There's no calmness to once it starts. Each town is worse. Trains are flipping over. I mean, it's very intense, and I think some of the scenes I have here, let me see. The way that they would block themselves from zombies, which you don't often see in movies. Like zombies would walk by on the train and they would hide themselves behind a newspaper or a fire extinguisher, where it kind of brings up that whole like, are zombies blind? Are they, do they only react to sounds or smells or whatever? Like people would kind of hide from the zombies in here. I really like that. And I mean, the scene where the dad gets bit, the guy who's with his pregnant wife.
Oh yeah.
When he gets bit and finally comes up with a name for his kid as he's about to get like taken down and saves everybody. I mean, that's what else I liked about the movie is people change throughout the movie gradually, like very gradually. Like, you have the banker and you have this person and that, and like people definitely become more human throughout the movie, I think, which was interesting. Everybody kind of hates each other in the very beginning and they're like, you did this or you didn't let me buy or this happened. And then they realize they all need each other to survive and kind of, form that teammate dynamic a little bit more. So I really like that. What was it? The main character, his company was responsible for the outbreak.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, like that scene is like comes out of nowhere. You don't know anything about this guy, and then he's on the phone, and you just realize, oh, whatever he does, which they like kind of talk about it. I thought that was so good.
And again, another cool thing is like I almost found the setup to this movie to be kind of hilarious because ultimately it's like it took a zombie apocalypse for this guy to care about his daughter more. That's like that's like the simple tagline for it. Like it's just like it took that much for him to be like, all right, like fuck, I guess I have to care about my daughter. And like so like obviously like like you said, he changes too. Like a bunch of characters have their little moments of glimpses of like newfound change and like how they have to work together. And obviously he's like the main example because he goes from like kind of cold-hearted and singular to again kind of stepping up, being a leader. So it's just a cool movie. Like I like how kind of straightforward all these ideas are, and they're just all executed one by one really well. It's also just visually great. I like the zombies a lot in this movie. The gore isn't like the best by any means, but it's good.
Not bad. Yeah, it's not bad.
It's still really good.
I think they need to make a Super Bowl commercial where like he survives and goes back home with his wife to the mom, and he's like, "Hey, hun, I put in my 2 weeks at the job. Like, I'm ready to be a family man." And he goes outside and like plays baseball with the daughter. Like that could be funny. But no, I mean the scene where the zombies are dropping out of the train's flipped over on its side and the glass breaks. I mean, like a lot of it was very I would love to have either been on set for the movie or for there to be like a ride. There needs to be like a Train to Busan ride in Asia where like you get to like walk around on set, kind of like that backdraft thing in Disney World.
They should make a Train to Busan. This would be like a huge undertaking, but it should be like they should make a ride, but it's also like part like trap room or whatever you call them, like
escape rooms.
So make it make a part of an escape room where like you're on the train, you have to get to the next stall or something with a group of people, and then maybe you have to like sit down and get on like a separate ride or something. Like,
So you have to like read the newspaper in seat 7 to like learn what it takes to open the door to the next car.
yeah.
Things like that. Yeah, that's a really good idea. You could do that for so many movies too, like The Shining escape room and like
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
true.
yeah. That'd be really cool. I mean, there's that Saw escape room in Vegas. Once
Which I still
once
have to
the
go to.
once the world settles down, I'm coming out to visit you for like a 24-hour period, and I don't even care about gambling or drinking. I want to do the Saw escape room, and I want to go
You gotta do Meow Wolf too.
Meow Wolf. Have you been?
No, not yet. I'm
Yeah,
waiting.
they're building one in Denver. They're building
Oh,
one in
sick.
Denver, and New Mexico is where the original one is. But yeah, I would love to see that. And then Vegas also has the Titanic steps replica. One of the hotels there has the same ballroom steps, which I didn't learn until after we left Vegas. However, we did go out to Vegas to see Celine Dion, so we got to see My Heart Will Go On live. I mean, so
Right,
I will
you got
not
what you wanted.
I will not complain about that. Yeah. Yeah, I was 30 when I went to Vegas for the first time, which was perfect because like, I play penny slots and I didn't get too drunk because I knew my tolerance, which was great. I didn't, spend $6,000 I didn't have on, blackjack. I
Right.
went out there, I saw Celine Dion, and you know, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, Train to Busan. I'll probably watch Peninsula, but like 28 weeks later, I'll just try to think of it as a different movie. I think that's the biggest thing to do.
Yeah, kind of its own. Yeah, its own separate entity. It's doing its own thing. But we've already mentioned like quite a few movies in this kind of genre that do their own thing. Like obviously Day of the Dead was the first one we mentioned, but like previously, that's the third installment in George A. Romero's little trilogy. Night of the Living Dead, and was the first one in '68, I believe, and then he did 10 years later he did Dawn of the Dead, which I prefer both of those. Having watched those again recently as well, Night of the Living Dead is technically the first zombie movie ever made, at least like the zombies we think of. Because technically the first zombie movie ever is called White Zombie, and that's a old like early 30s like Bela Lugosi movie. Who Bela Lugosi was actually it was Dracula in the original Universal movie. So technically that was the first one, but Night of the Living Dead definitely popularized the idea of zombies and pushed that idea of like these slow, just walking ghosts that don't have any conscience, who are just out there to eat flesh. So like that was the first one to really do it. It still holds up because again, it's more about the human element than anything. It's about all these people trapped in a house, and they all have their idea of what the safest thing to do is. So and it's funny because something like that kind of still holds up today in a sense, because going through so many crazy things in life, everybody's gonna have their own idea of what's the right thing to do, and we're gonna disagree. But rather than just disagree and try to learn from it, a lot of people are gonna just think they're right about everything, and so it has that cool dynamic in the movie. And Dawn of the Dead is really cool too because it's all in a mall setting. Obviously, compared to Night of the Living Dead, it's a lot gorier. It's a big improvement on the special effects. Even the zombies themselves, even if they do look kind of weird. I know, Mikey, you were pointing out earlier my background. Like they look blue. They're like a weird like.
And then the guy in the back is green. The Daniel Stern guy is green in the back, and like
Yeah.
none of them look like zombies. There's no blood. There's no ripped flesh on their faces. Like
yeah, that's the thing about that movie. Like again, it's impressive in its own right for the time, but like you're right compared to what we've seen, like they're lacking. Like they kind of just do look like people with face paint on and like just growing. But it's still cool. Dawn of the Dead is awesome. Like that movie's crazy, and for some reason the rights to it have not been distributed properly, so there is no like good there's no good release yet. I think like you can buy it for like $70 on Blu-ray if you want. Yeah, but there's no good. Nobody is able to get the rights for it, so there's no proper release yet, which sucks. Because I'd like to have that movie on Blu-ray for sure, or even 4K if that was possible.
how many of those have they? So there's Day of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, and Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, so those were the three, and George A. Romero made more. So he made Land of the Dead. He made Diaries of the Dead, which was his like found footage take on it. He did that in like 2007.
Cool.
Which I gotta watch again because I've seen it and it's actually pretty cool.
I'd like to watch that.
Yeah, and you should definitely check it out, especially because I know you like found footage movies. That's a unique take on the genre for sure.
I like you know how you were talking about zombies going back to like the 1930s and all that. I love how like you kind of like start to study that and you go, okay, like I want to learn about aliens or ghosts or vampires, and it'll be like the earliest tellings of vampires was in 1214, where like King blah blah blah, you know, wrote like a short story about a Batman who came in at night and sucked blood. Like I
Yeah.
really like because you think about like, oh, the first vampire movie was probably Dracula or whatever, and it's like, nope, vampires have been on stages and theaters since hundreds and hundreds of years. I
Oh
wonder,
yeah.
what cave drawings they have of some kind of zombies and ghouls back then and all of that. But I would ask you because I know you know the stuff way more than I do. Out of those three movies Romero made, how many have been remade? Because I know that there's the remake of the one in the mall.
Yeah, so Zack Snyder, one of his actually first directing jobs was the Dawn of the Dead remake, which he made in 2005, I think.
That's the one in the mall, right? With Ty Burrell from Modern Family.
Yeah, Ty Burrell,
Yeah.
yeah, and Ving Rhames and Sarah
Yep.
Polley. Which, by the way, I love Sarah Polley so much.
Sarah Polley.
Yeah,
What is she from?
she's super. I feel like she's super underrated as an actor. She's in a bunch of random stuff, but she's also a director. She made Stories We Tell, which was I think came out in like 2012 or 2013. But she's a great documentarian and like
Oh, cool.
she's a very unique career. But yeah, that movie's interesting for sure. I'd like to rewatch that one. I remember. I think I actually watched that movie before I saw the original because I saw like right when it came out. 2005, I was like, I don't even know how old I was, like 12 or something. So like 12, 13. So like, I was super into that. And
Youngin'.
yeah, oh yeah. But I think Night of the Living Dead was remade in the 90s, I think. I've never seen, no one ever talks about it. I don't know. It's probably not that notable. I think Day of the Dead has like a pseudo like semi like sequel or like remake that was made in like 2008, but again, it was like a nothing movie, like didn't really like connect anything or do anything new with the material.
So what is Army of the Dead?
So Army of the Dead,
Is that part of any of it?
I don't think so. I mean, here's the thing. Even the original trilogy, I call it a trilogy loosely because they're not really connected too much. Like they all take place at various times in the apocalypse, but like Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead technically start off in the beginnings. Like they're both like the beginnings of the apocalypse, and but like obviously Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead is like 10 years later, and they don't there's no mention of like prior characters or locations really. There might be like small stuff, but nothing like super concrete. Because I know George A. Romero didn't even intend to make more zombie movies, but Dario Argento, the Italian director who made the original Suspiria, he actually got him to make a new zombie movie.
How?
I think there were just talks, and he was such a fan of Night of the Living Dead, and I think he wanted to see him do more. So he like was a huge inspiration on George to make Dawn of the Dead, which it's funny because again that became such a huge like thing for the genre. Like that's such a hallmark for like special effects and zombies in general. So it's like funny that he did that, and I know like they both also worked on a movie together. They did like some like double feature like Edgar Allan Poe movie back in the 90s or something. So they've worked together in different capacities.
Some
too.
pretty cool pull in the movie industry to be like, hey, I want you to do more of these.
For real. I mean, you have this director like I'm sure he was like he was inspired by him too. So to have like a notable guy be like, hey, like you're good at this, like you should make more or make another version of this. I think it's cool because like and it's funny because Dawn of the Dead too, like there's different versions of it. I know that there's the Italian version is a little bit more straightforward and like not as silly because the original American version has a lot of silly stuff. Like there's a lot of scenes of them just like trying on hats at the mall. Like they're like in like I mean to me that's what's so good about the movie. There's such a contrast between the beginning is like there's like police kicking down doors and killing people and it's like total anarchy and like scary like a situation you would never want to be in. They fly to the mall and then all of a sudden they're safe in the mall. They have this whole place to themselves and they're just like walking around shopping, trying on clothes, like nothing's going on. So it's like, it's such a funny like dichotomy that the movie plays up. And that's something that again is kept in the original, which I think is kind of like subdued in the Italian version to make it more serious. But yeah, no, amazing movie. I love, that's one of my favorite zombie movies for sure. But yeah, I mean, anything else like as far as like, I don't know, anything new? Like I know Train to Busan is fairly recent, but like anything else like in maybe the past 10 years that have been kind of big for the genre. I know obviously Walking Dead as a TV show, huge like cultural phenomenon. And it's something where like I know you like it a lot. I appreciate it. I think one day maybe I'll go back and watch it again because I've seen the first 7 seasons and it was hit or miss for me. But when it hit, I thought it hit really hard.
So have you've seen Negan then?
I saw like 1 or 2 seasons with Negan, I think. Yeah.
So you saw like the deaths and all that?
Yeah.
Okay, because on the new season, I mean, if we're giving away spoilers on this podcast, I'll just talk about current Walking Dead stuff, minor stuff. But Negan is now working with the main characters that we follow on the show. He's like kind of like earned his keep and kind of works with them and is now kind of like on their side. And they just brought the second half of the 10th season back, I think in February. And Maggie, because she was going on another show, Lauren Cohan, they kind of like wrote her off from the show. They'd reference her in a few episodes, like communicating with her. Her show didn't do too well. She's back on The Walking Dead. And the first scene that she's in, she's walking to one of the communities and Negan is standing there and she has to walk by him. And it's like a super, super tense moment. Because I mean, he killed the love of her life. And she hasn't really known where he's been or what he's been doing or what he's been up to. And they kind of gave her a little bit of a warning of like, hey, now Negan is with us. And it was a very, very like hard to watch moment. But I mean, Alpha, who's the, antagonist in the last season, along with Ryan Hurst from Sons of Anarchy, you can't go wrong with those people as bad guys. Negan, they're bringing on Negan's wife in real life to play Lucille, who's his wife on the show who died, who he named his bat after. So we're going to be meeting her and learning of the Negan story. So it's been very interesting how the show is kind of, people are going from good to bad to good. And I think one of the really cool parts too is Fear the Walking Dead. I didn't have a big interest in it. And then I think Walking Dead wasn't on for, the couple months. And then I went back and started binging Fear the Walking Dead to the fact that I didn't get caught up on The Walking Dead when it came back until it was like halfway through the season. I loved Fear so much. Fear opens up like zombies. And in like the first episode, they learn that covering themselves in blood and guts means they can walk with the zombies, which you don't learn until like season like 7 on Walking Dead. Well, so like,
no, actually The Walking Dead, they do that in like season 1, don't they? But they don't really, they don't really do it again for like a long ass time. I remember because I think season 1 or 2, and I think it's season 1 honestly, because they're trying to get out of the city. They cover themselves in the guts and like came in. It's like Rick and Glenn. They're like walking, trying to get out of the city, and then like it starts raining and washes it off of them. But they don't do that again. And like that was something a lot of people brought up. I remember over the years, like, oh, like why can't they just cover themselves in guts and walk around and get away and stuff? But like, I mean, it's something that they do more of in Fear the Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yeah. I mean, a big part of it. And also there's some very bad antagonists in it. Once again, it's not about zombies in Fear the Walking Dead. Every season there's a new bad guy who's trying to take over all of the state that they're in or the community. I started to hate the redhead on The Boys. She's like their agent or manager.
Yeah.
She's one of the antagonists in Fear the Walking Dead, and I don't like her. I like her a lot in The Boys. I don't like her character on Fear. But you have to keep watching it, and it's the cool thing about The Walking Dead is every season you go, okay, the governor, he kept his zombie daughter on a chain waiting for a cure, and he would keep zombie heads in fish tanks. Like there's gonna be nobody worse than him in next season, and then you meet Negan, and you go, nobody's worse than Negan, and then you meet Alpha, and it's just like I love how every season it keeps getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I would recommend getting back into it. It's done after this season, and then they're doing a what is it? They're doing a Daryl and Carol spin-off show,
which is kind of cool because to me, like they're probably like the best characters, or at least in my opinion, they were the most fun to watch. Obviously Daryl was like a fan favorite, and Carol became a fan favorite over time. Like
Carol was a casting agent in Hollywood.
Yeah.
If you look at her IMDb, there's not much before The Walking Dead.
Well,
She was a cast
her big credits are only really with Frank Darabont, and that's why she was on the show
Oh,
because
okay, cool.
she had been in some of his other movies. She might have even been in The Mist for like she might have had a cam or like a little.
Oh,
scene
he
in
made that? That was him?
Yeah, that was Frank Darabont.
Oh, cool.
And Frank Darabont did The Green Mile and Shawshank and all these amazing movies, and
Directed or produced?
directed.
Really?
Yeah. So Frank Darabont was, he obviously was showrunner for season 1, and then for various reasons, creative differences and whatnot, he was let go for some reason. Which to me, like I still think that was kind of a big mistake because he's such an amazing talent. So I think having him only for the season 1 was kind of a mistake. But like I don't know, like I said, I like all the seasons I have watched, I've enjoyed various ones pretty immensely. Like I think it was later in the show, season 5 or 6, where they built these walls and like redirected a bunch of zombies. That whole like plot I thought was fantastic. Like that was one of the cooler moments I think in the entire show. So I mean the thing is like naturally with a show that big, I guess you're gonna have some like filler episodes. You're gonna have stuff that doesn't quite add up because they're trying to do so much.
There's a lot of filler episodes. I mean, there's some bottle episodes. I watched one yesterday. The last 2 episodes of The Walking Dead. And this is where there's so many communities and they take place in different parts that like some episodes you won't see any characters except for 2 of them. So like the last 2 episodes I watched were like bottle episodes that took place in just one location and just kind of dry and boring to the point where you have to like, as that episode's starting off, it shows you like last time you saw these people, 3 episodes ago. So that kind of sucks, but there's only so much you can do. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to do, because the cool thing about The Walking Dead is it binds people who wouldn't get along in the real world. Daryl would have never gotten along with a cop. And I mean, of course, there's that theory that The Walking Dead is the prequel to Breaking Bad, because in The Walking Dead, Daryl and Merle are smoking a blue meth, which is what Jesse and Walter are making. So they think that, they're both on AMC. They talk about how that meth leads to the zombie apocalypse. Anyway, Merle and Daryl and Carol, none of these people would be friends in the real world. What I'd like to see, and I won't even say see, because I'll just say we should write it. We're talking about like a zombie movie with a cure, where like they get the cure and then somebody, gets killed saying they're going to turn. I want to see like a Breakfast Club Walking Dead zombie kind of movie where like at the end there's a cure and everybody gets the cure and then they're just like, when we go back to school on Monday, you're probably going to pass me in the hallways, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's what you think about. If the world ever re-civilizes, yeah, they'll probably stay together because they are each other's family. But it is that kind of like, when we go back to school, like, it's these people just would never have met each other any other way, which is so interesting.
Right. Yeah. It took all, again, an entire apocalypse for these relationships to form. And, it's a cool thing for sure. And that's something that I think is just, regardless of zombie movie or not, it's something that people like to see in movies. You want to see like human connection. You want to see opposites attract and like how people come together, and like it's a cool thing when you can pull that off. And like that is also a strength of The Walking Dead, because again, they get to a certain point in the show where they do kind of branch off and have other characters. Like once goddamn, I'm trying to remember her name. Michonne, is that her name?
Yeah, I love her.
So Michonne's great, obviously, and once she's introduced, season 3, her story is separate. They cut back to her story, and eventually the 2 stories merge where she actually meets Rick in the group. And it's kind of cool. Again, it's awesome because that whole season, you're so excited for them to actually meet up. Like, you're like, oh,
she's terrifying when you first meet her.
Yeah. Oh, she is. Yeah.
And now she's a mom, and like, my 2 biggest problems with The Walking Dead are, one, what they're trying to do with Rick with the spin-off movies and all that. Basically, Andrew Lincoln's from England, and as you know, because he lived in Atlanta, The Walking Dead is filmed all in Atlanta and Georgia. So the thing is that Rick for like 10 years had been filming this movie while his family was in England. So he's like, I'm going to leave The Walking Dead. I'm going to leave The Walking Dead, go back and be with my family in England. Now they're trying to make like 3 spin-off movies with Andrew Lincoln, which will probably take place in England. I don't love that. I also don't love that for like 10 seasons of the show, they've barely made it out of Atlanta. They've gone up to like Virginia, but like that's one thing I have a problem with in a zombie world. Like, I mean, I just started rewatching it too. Did you ever watch Last Man on Earth?
Yeah, a little bit of it, yeah.
I think he like lives in California, but like he'll get in a car and just drive to the White House and steal like the rug and bring it back to his house. And then he'll go to like, Disney
Yeah.
World and steal an animatronic Mickey and bring it back to his house. Like that's what the apocalypse should be about is people traveling North America, traveling all these places and really trying to see who's out there. Something we haven't talked about is Zombieland.
Oh yeah, Zombieland's
Ooh.
amazing.
The cameo in Zombieland, the two best cameos of all time, in my opinion, Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder, which was not teased, nobody knew it,
Yeah,
and then the movie comes out and you see it, and Bill Murray in Zombieland.
I agree.
I mean,
I agree.
nobody knew Bill Murray was in Zombieland, and he literally walks out in the room, gets shot, and as he's dying, they ask if any regrets, and he says Garfield. And have you seen the Zombieland sequel?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, because the post-credit scene, you go, all right, where's Bill Murray? They can't not do Bill Murray. And I believe that they show the zombie outbreak starting during a press release for Bill Murray doing Garfield. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
It was like, I'm pretty sure it was literally Garfield Tale of Two Kitties or whatever, the sequel.
Yep,
And like,
yep,
and
yep.
the funny part is, all right, little like funny thing is, I might have mentioned it on the show before that I don't know if I mentioned that I've done security on during the filming of that movie during Double Tap.
Zombieland 2?
Yeah, so that was
Yeah,
they were
cool.
filming that like early 2019, and I worked security, and actually I literally worked the day they shot that scene with Bill Murray and Al Roker. I didn't see them unfortunately, but I remember being on. So they shot that at like a Hilton in downtown Atlanta.
Oh, cool.
And
Cool.
I remember being like near the service. I was near like the service elevator. I was like just watching crew bring in stuff, and I remember, I think it was costuming. They brought all the costumes in. Like I saw it said Roker. It said A Roker, and I was just like, okay, like Al Roker's here. I'm like, they're definitely doing some interview thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And
that's
like,
funny.
so it was cool. I didn't get to actually see the set, but it was just funny, like actually seeing the movie and being like, okay, I know I was there that day when they filmed it, and like, and what do you think of the sequel? Because personally, I thought it was just kind of like overall.
You can't touch the first movie.
No,
and
you
the,
really can't.
The climax of the first movie at the amusement park where Woody Harrelson finally finds his Twinkies and there's the clown with the hammer. I mean, I love the first one. The second one was okay. I mean, it added a few more actors and actresses and stuff like that. I didn't love it. I did not love it. I mean, the Bill Murray part definitely made it. I want to see more Bill Murray. But I had an idea. I think I pitched this to you the other day. I want to start writing fan fiction for Zombieland because I've had ideas for zombie movies that I'd then just go, nah, that should be in the third Zombieland movie. Like, I love how they like splice in real stuff. So I had an idea the other day. I was probably watching Shark Tank that like there should be a zombie movie where somebody creates a weapon that kills a bunch of zombies at once and then they take it on Shark Tank. And I was like, all of the sharks should be dead and they're all tied up. And then I was like, no, that would be in Zombieland. Like in Zombieland 3, I want to write a spec script where they go to like pitch a new Twinkie or something. And it's like Mark Cuban, Laurie, Robert, all of them, Damon, and they're all zombies and they're in the chairs and they're just like sitting there. Like I'd love to see more of that in Zombieland. I'd love to see more of the kind of like, heads in Futurama. More of people that are like, big actors tied up, I mean, Brad Pitt's cameo in Deadpool. I don't even think he made money off of it. I think he was paid in like food or something. But like, remember his cameo in Deadpool?
For Brad Pitt?
He was the invisible guy.
Oh, yeah.
And it shows his face for like 3 seconds. Like, I'd love to see that in another Zombieland movie where it's like, they're walking and they see like Leonardo DiCaprio, just like a zombie on his like cell phone or something. I'd love to see like more of that.
Right. No, and I think like, I don't know if they'd ever make more Zombieland stuff, but because considering I don't think the second one was a huge hit by any means, but you know, I mean, to me, it's like it didn't really expand upon any ideas. Like, it had some funny jokes here and there, but like, I just think like with an idea, like, because Zombieland is such a fresh, funny take on zombies. So you're right. Most sequels do not hold up at all to the original. Like I just watched Coming to America 2 recently. Not anywhere near as good as the first one.
Really?
Not even
I haven't
close.
seen the original yet. I want to see the sequel, but I'm going to watch the original first, the first one.
Well, and the thing is, like, here's the thing. Like, my roommate hated it. It's the original is one of his favorites, so he really hated the new one.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. To me, it was just kind of throwaway. It was just kind of a throwaway story, and it had some good jokes in it. It had some funny moments. Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy are incredibly funny, obviously.
Yeah.
The original, though, to me is just such a tightly like wound comedy. So it's funny, like again, in the case of Zombieland 2, in the case of Coming to America 2, you have these sequels that like don't really like try to do anything new. It's kind of just like a retreading the same water in a sense, or like just kind of pushing these like weird like romantic like like plot lines or whatever. Like Zombieland 2, you had I would almost call her Chloe Grace Moretz. What's her name from fucking uh Little Miss
That is
Sunshine?
Abigail Breslin.
Yeah, Abigail Breslin. Yeah. So
Yep,
like
yep.
her whole thing is like she finds like a lover in Zombieland 2, and then she like flees and everything. And I don't know, to me like it's like they put so much focus on that side plot, and it's just like not that interesting. So
Like how many storylines of like pouty people like running off and breaking up and leaving during a zombie apocalypse can you do?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had like, and honestly, she was kind of funny. I forget her name, but they found that girl who was like living in like the refrigerator at the mall or something, and they
What was
bring
her name?
yeah, she was kind of funny. She had a super like glitzy, like high pitched annoying voice, but like I mean, she was funny enough.
Zoe Dutch. Zoe Dutch.
Zoe Dutch, yeah.
Yeah, I like her a lot. Rosario Dawson is in it. Luke Wilson, Dan Aykroyd. Al Roker. Yep.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so yeah, Zombieland is one of those movies I wasn't even thinking about for this episode, but it is like I think it's like at this point it's just a notable zombie movie for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I like when they kind of put a twist on that, like the other one too. I really like that, the other one too. Warm Bodies. Anytime they take it and put a twist on it, it's really cool. Like, you don't see a lot of movies like, funny vampire movies and things like that. If you do, it's usually one of those like so dumb parody movies where they're like,
Right.
the Die Light or
Like-
twi farts or something.
Or like what is it, the fucking Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer? Like it's like one of those like
That I'd like to see. That I'd like to watch. Yeah.
well, yeah, it's like
Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Somebody
Yeah,
made a
mashups.
career after going back into the book of Pride and Prejudice and writing like zombies every other word.
yeah.
They're like, hey, I made a new book.
yeah.
Movie
It's all
deal
my
out of it.
idea. I'm a genius,
Good Night Moon and Vampires. That's my book now.
yeah.
I'll sell the rights to Hollywood. Yeah, I mean, there's so much out. I'm trying to think of what else is out there. I wish, Resident Evil. I mean, to cover that, it was good, so crazy for its time. I think Resident Evil. I mean, the gore in that movie once
Oh,
again
yeah.
takes place in one place. The whole movie, excuse me, but the scene with the lasers. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up actually.
Yeah, that scene in the movie like really did it for me, where just it's a bunch of people trapped in a room just getting torn apart by lasers. It's kind of like Saw, that movie. I mean, they move
Little
from
bit.
room to room and there's
traps in each room,
but that
There's that early 2000s torture porn, like
Yeah,
just
yep.
just like
what were
crazy.
you gonna say
What?
about that scene?
Just that to me, like that's one of the more notable scenes from it, because it's just a crazy death, and to me, like that's also just something like feels so like ripped from the video game, like something
Is
like
it? Yeah.
well, I could be wrong about that. Oh well, I think I'm wrong about that, but I think it's similar because there is a Resident Evil movie that involves like lasers like that, where like you have to like kind of like duck under lasers and shit. So
Mhm.
like I don't know, to me it has that like super like crazy video game aesthetic, which is like what you want, from any movie like this. But yeah, watching that like one guy just get like cut into cubes was like just a crazy visual. And again, like you watched it when you were in 8th grade, I watched it when I was young too, so it was just like this crazy scene. It was like, oh my god.
I mean, just like you see these other people getting like their fingers cut off, and then he's dodging and doing Olympic gymnastics, and then he winds up like, the laser is just one line, and then as it's approaching him, and I think he's like hanging on the ceiling or something, it turns into 1,000 lasers and just slices him, and you see like his body parts slide off of one another. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that was the most memorable scene, but the whole movie is fantastic, and I really like how throughout the movie it shows you what happened before. So, they'll be like the score was really powerful in that movie and really sets a lot of the tone. So like they'll be down there, and what was her name? Alice? Is that the AI girl?
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll be like, "Hello, I locked the door so you can't get out of here." And then they're like, "Why would you lock the door?" And then it shows like, the Umbrella Corporation and how like, somebody was leaving the lab and threw the beaker behind them, and that's what it's like the flashbacks in that movie that kind of set everything up. I really enjoyed. The sequel was all right. The one thing that stuck with me during the sequel is Mila Jovovich survives the first one with that guy, and then in the second one she fights him as the main antagonist. They've turned him into that super monster. So that was like kind of cool when she realizes that. But then you get to like 3, 4, 5, the sixth movie, and she's just clones of herself. And you're like, I know that like I'm still watching Mila Jovovich, but like, I don't know. Maybe that's something I don't like about movies and shows where I'm just like, you know what? It's not the same like character. And that does mean something where you're like, it's not the same person I used to love watching on here. And the reboot, I'm curious of what it's going to be about.
It's weird. I just had a crazy memory from like 2007 because like I remember when I think it was Resident Evil Extinction. That was like the third one. I remember when that came out. I remember sitting at the food court of the Silver City Galleria Mall, which actually like a month ago was destroyed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like it's done. Like COVID took it out. I used to go to that mall. That was the mall I went to all the time to see movies.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Damn.
But I remember from back then sitting at the mall and like it's cool because at the food court, like they used to have like a vertical like rectangular sign all the way at the top, and you looked up and it showed like movies. It would show movie times, and like the theater like literally got custom like little poster plates that were like little like license plates almost, and they put them like like next to the movie title. And I just remember seeing that. Like I remember like being so hyped to like see it because at the time I was into those movies, and like I was still young, so I had to like try and sneak it or something if I ever wanted to try and see that. So like I just remember seeing that and being so excited for it. But like no, now this is just making me want to rewatch them because I've seen the first 3, and I think I've seen part of like 4 or 5 or something. There's like 6 of them at this point.
I just don't have an interest in anything past 1. I mean, it's
right.
It's too good. It's too good. I mean,
that's why they're just, to me, they're just crazy. Like they just get progressively weirder. And like, again, for like, it's just crazy to me to see like that much like insanity in like a big budget, like studio, like blockbuster, to see like crazy, like zombie, weird, futuristic action stuff. So
yeah, I just feel like, not that I follow the games. I don't read books or like follow games enough to like go in there and be like, well, Alice is blue in the video game, and she's that's why I always loved Harry Potter, because I read like 3 of the books. I didn't remember any of them. I didn't care for them, so I loved every movie. And people walked out of the movies and they're like, his broom was brown in the book. It wasn't auburn. And I was like, I love the movie. I didn't question anything. It's hilarious.
There can be joys of not reading a book and seeing the movie it's based on, because you're not going to nitpick it to death. Like,
Have you seen the Silent Hill movies?
The Silent Hill? I've seen, so there's that one that came out in like 2006 or something.
There's two.
Yeah. I think I've seen part of it, but no, I don't really remember much from them, honestly. At least the one I have seen.
Don't watch the sequel. Don't watch.
No.
It's too scary, man. I saw it in 3D. I saw it in 3D with a friend, and it's got Malcolm McDowell in it, which is really cool. But it opens up with her dreaming she's in Silent Hill, and she goes to this like little park, and there's a merry-go-round, and all of the horses turn into these like shaved men who are wrapped in saran wrap and are bleeding out of the top of their heads. And my friend and I just went to go see it in 3D for fun, and we were like, okay, this is. They're very twisted movies, and I think if you ever move back here, we're gonna have to do this. Silent Hill, I believe, is based off of a place in Pennsylvania where a mine caught fire a very, very long time ago, and it's still on fire to this day.
Really?
So you can go to the town. Yeah, there's an underground fire that's been burning for decades now.
And you can actually like get near it, like close enough to like see it, or
stand over it or something.
I think
it's what Silent Hill was like loosely based off of, or something like that. Yeah.
That's insane.
I think one more thing to go back to Zombieland. They talked about making Les Grossman spin-off movies from Tropic Thunder, like just give Tom Cruise his own movies. I want that for Bill Murray. Like I just want a Zombieland of just Bill Murray cameos and where else he can pop up.
I mean, like it could work if you had like, because I forget Zombieland. I forget how long, like, but when they meet Bill Murray, I forget how long they've been in the apocalypse. But clearly, like that entire time, Bill Murray was just in his mansion. So like,
Yep.
you could literally just have a movie of Bill Murray during the apocalypse in his mansion, just like doing weird stuff. Like, I mean, it could work.
Even like a half-hour like movie, just like a short film. Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah,
It'd be
I think
fun.
I've been working on a zombie movie for a very long time now, and by that I mean I work on it like once every few months. But it's a short film. I've told you a lot about it. I really want to like finish it this year and release it. But I'm such a big fan of the zombie thing, and I think there's so much you can do low budget with it. Like when you come back next month, we've talked about making a short film. I'd love to just make some kind of, there's so many artsy things you can do in the zombie world, in the vampire world, things like
Yeah.
that, where like you don't have to have blood and gore and you can just set it in that zombie universe. And it doesn't have to be all of this. It can just be like, what's it like when somebody's holed up in their cabin during a zombie apocalypse? Like there's so
True.
much to it.
Yeah.
And
Again, a lot of them focus on the human element, and
yeah.
you're right. You could have these like really unique settings, or again, like pertaining to Busan or something, predicaments where people wouldn't have expected to find themselves in. They would never want to be in that situation, essentially. So you're right.
Zombies on a plane, which I'm sure has been done, but yeah,
Zombies on a plane, yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's it's just there's so much you can do with it, and like we talked about the differences between, hey, I mean, in what is it? 28 days later, somebody gets their arm chopped off, right after they get bitten.
Yeah. Oh,
The
that.
woman,
By the way, I didn't even bring that scene up. That scene is still so messed up. Like, because it's when Cillian Murphy finds those two other people just walking around, and they find him, they pick him up, and they sleep for the night at the house.
Mhm.
The zombie runs in, it scrapes the guy on the arm, and he's like, wait, don't do anything. And like before he can even say anything, she just comes at him with Naomi Harris. She just comes at him with like a cleaver and just like butchers him to death. And like you hear his voice, like he's screaming. You just hear his screams like cut to a halt, and it's like it's still a graphic as hell. You just watch a woman bludger a dude to death with a machete.
I forgot that. I thought she just cut off his arm.
No,
Yeah,
she
kills him.
She like goes at his arm, and then she just continually whacks at him, and it's like.
Yeah.
It still holds up. It's still really graphic.
Well, it's kind of like that what was I trying to say? Yeah, I mean, what I like about that is one that sticks with you, of course. But what I like about that too is, I like, how did you feel about the end of that movie? She chops that guy's arm off, and they tell each other, like, if you ever have a second thought that I've turned, don't think twice about killing me. And then at the end, he's covered in the blood and he runs up to her and she's about to kill him and then stops. Like, was that too cheesy for you? It's still my favorite zombie movie, but is it too cheesy?
That's one criticism you can make of it, where like, again, they try to bring it back to that character moment where like, you could say it's like growth in a sense, but it's like, I don't know. It's a little, you're right. It is a little like cutesy for like a movie like that maybe, but.
Trust your lover, but nobody else. Like,
yeah. Trust your lover, and then fucking make a dude into a smoothie with a machete.
I forgot about that scene until now.
It's great though. I mean, like the whole movie's still so visceral and has this just like, it kind of has this like grainy, lower budget quality to it that it makes it just feel more intense. It almost gives it the same quality that like a lower budget like the lower budget aesthetics of like something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre gives the movie, where the lower budget actually helps it seem more like gritty and like kind of disgusting. That's almost like the same effect I feel like what 28 Days Later does too.
I want to be on the set of a zombie movie where like cars are flipped over and buildings are on fire. Like, I love that kind of stuff in zombie movies where it's just like everything's demolished. And I mean, Last Man on Earth, it's not a zombie show. No, I mean, it's a virus, but I really like those kind of montages they do in that and zombie, 28 Days Later, where they go on like a shopping spree. That's always a montage in a zombie movie where they're like, hey, I'm going to go get every liquor bottle in town, or I'm going to go get every, candy possible, because it's like, I love those scenes where it like humanizes the people, where they're shopping again and they're like, I appreciate that.
And that's why Zombieland works. That's why Dawn of the Dead works. That's why all these different movies work, because they do smart things like that. I feel like, where you just have these moments where like, amidst all this craziness, it's like, I just want to find a Twinkie. Because hell, goddamn, it's the end of the world. Might as well just try to look for one. Why the hell not?
Yep.
Like,
I mean, that storyline should be so dumb in Zombieland, but it's not. And like at the end, he's like about to get killed by zombies. Like, hey, I found a Twinkie. Like, I mean,
You're right.
the casting of him in that is just perfect. I loved him being in that movie. Woody Harrelson, he's the best.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we need to do a part 2 of this.
I agree because
We have
I
to.
think we covered a lot of classics today, but honestly, yeah, there are so many other movies, and I'm sure by the time we do a next one, there'll probably be a whole new slate of movies.
More to watch. I
Yeah.
know I want to have one of my best friends on because we grew up watching zombie stuff, and then I know your roommate was an extra on The Walking Dead, which is very cool.
True.
So I mean, it'd be cool to have one of them on and kind of pick their brains with their thoughts of everything.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we can make it happen.
And I'm sure there'll be new shows, new movies. The Walking Dead will have come to an end by then. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about. We need to get people more involved on our social media. So if you're listening to this, like, comment on our YouTube video or comment on our Facebook or Twitter, Instagram post when we share this episode and tell us your favorite zombie show or movie. Tell us if you actually liked the Resident Evil series or, do you want to see it rebooted? There's definitely all of that. I mean, so what is your favorite? What's your favorite zombie movie of all time?
If I had to pick, honestly, might seem like such an obvious answer, but I might honestly just go with Night of the Living Dead because, 28 Days Later is up there. It might even be like my second choice, but
Yeah.
I love Night of the Living Dead because to me, it's just classic. It's like old school zombies. It's everyone trapped in a house trying to get along. It's such a basic formula, but to me, it works so well. And I don't know. I finally got the Criterion recently because it went on sale for like a day or something. So it's like I watched it, and it just still holds up so well. And
I'll give the other two a shot. I want to watch the other two.
I think I think you'd like those two a lot more because Day of the Dead is a lot more polarizing for sure. Like Day of the Dead is a lot more like grim, and to me, like it has probably the weakest story out of both of them for sure. I think Dawn of the Dead and Night have much stronger characters, and
Interesting.
And they're to me, again, they're more like, I don't know. Again, Night of the Living Dead is just classic, and Dawn of the Dead is just revamped. Like it's just like total it's like the beginning of real zombie gore and like what zombies could be and do. So
What
and
about
and just having a mall setting to me is just so fun. I love that's just a cool setting to me.
have you played Dead Rising on PlayStation?
Oh man, Dead Rising, damn,
Okay.
that's another good one. Yeah. Oh,
I have
that's
the-
the thing we should.
I have
Next
I have
episode,
both of
we
them.
talk video games too, because there's a lot of good zombie video games as well.
Yeah, we need to talk video game movies, TV show, video games, all that. They need to make I feel like they haven't made a Dead Rising video game because it's, the Dawn of the Dead or whatever one takes place at them all. Like they can't really make Dead Rising a movie because it's already pretty much the.
Yeah, that's true.
But I would love to see it because that movie, I mean, just the fact of using anything as a weapon is also not really seen in these movies and TV shows of you don't often see, maybe in Zombieland you see this, but you don't often see people getting killed with staplers and weird. It's always like somebody has a crossbow or is making their own weapons.
Yeah, and I agree because it's funny, we didn't even bring this up, I don't think at all. There's a movie that actually utilizes your surroundings more, like World War Z. Because in that movie, Brad Pitt, he wraps a phone book around his forearms so the zombies can't bite on him. And I'm like, yo, that's genius. I would totally do that if there was an apocalypse. I'd wrap something around my arms so I couldn't get bit.
If it was, I feel like if it was just you and not like bad guys and bad people, if it was just you versus zombies, you just put on like a shining armor.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll never get bit. But then you're also slowing yourself down for the people out there who want to rob you of everything you just got from the convenience store or grocery store. But yeah, that I do like that in movies. World War Z is unrealistic to me just because zombies it's kind of like Batman and Superman. Zombies that fast, you would never survive. Superman would never be killed by Batman. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
World War Z, nobody would survive those zombies. It's not possible. Nobody, right? I mean, they build their own walls.
I mean, no, I agree.
Which they did in Train to Busan, which I really like too.
Yeah, I mean, Train to Busan does kind of carry that over, which is nice because that's kind of a cool concept. They're zombies are also similar that they can literally merge in a sense bodies and create a wall or
and they don't know they're doing it either. I don't think, right?
Yeah, almost. It just seems like they're all individually trying to climb it, but then
Falls into place.
yeah, so everything falls into place. But yeah, no, World War Z, I want to watch it again. I remember being really hyped for it when it came out.
Yeah, it's
And
a
like,
video game too.
oh yeah, true.
Yeah,
I want to read the book.
they were supposed to make a sequel too, but
Yeah, I
those
thought David Fincher was supposed to direct the sequel. I'm pretty sure, which
really
would have been crazy.
interesting. Those zombies to me are scary. You know, like I want like if I were playing a VR, which I played that last Resident Evil that takes place in the house, I forget the name, and I was like, there's a VR of this. I would not want to play the VR, but like that's the
Right.
thing. It's like a zombie VR where they're kind of just, you're like, all right, cool, but then you like do like a zombie apocalypse with post-apocalypse with World War Z, everybody's dead.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
and that's what Train to Busan Peninsula looks like. They look a lot faster, a lot kind of like more actiony, which is
smarter, faster.
yeah. I mean, you watch Stronger. I mean, you watch like a zombie movie where like somebody trips and then the zombie's like, oh,
I know,
and then bites them, and you're like, come on, man. But then you watch World War Z and you're like, I wouldn't last 5 minutes in that world.
Yeah, no, for real. And,
Nope.
and for me, that's the same with 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later, where I'm like, my God, that would be so difficult to survive. Like, you'd have to have like a certified bunker, and like I would never want to leave because like those zombies, like the second they like again, they could just like nick you with a fingernail, and you'd get infected and die. So it's
Yep.
like,
We should splice trailers. Like, do you remember that movie with Brendan Fraser, Blast from the Past?
oh yeah,
We should splice trailers where like he finally comes up from underground and it's a zombie apocalypse.
oh
Like
yeah,
we should splice movies where it's like, the end of The Shining and they finally get out of the mansion and like 60 years has passed and it's the post-apocalypse. Like
yeah, everything's fucked up.
yeah, it'd be cool to do. Next episode or on our social media, people should comment on this and we'll talk about it. I'd love to learn more about what other people think about when it comes to like what's I gonna say? Just like what else you'd want to see zombies of. Pride and Prejudice and zombies. Like what movies or shows would you want to see? What characters would you want to see? Like Zombie Seinfeld? Would you want to see
Zombie
like
Seinfeld, yeah.
like would you what could you make of like other zombie shows and movies? I don't know. What
Right.
would you think if you could do a zombie show or movie? What would it be? Like Titanic zombie? Like what would you do?
I don't know. That's a unique question. So as far as like almost like inserting zombies into something else, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something like space.
I want like like Dead Space.
Yeah.
I have that video game and I've never played it. I mean,
one of my favorites. Dead Space is
Is it?
amazing. Yeah.
I want more. For me, I'm thinking of like a zombie like Full House, where like okay, I know I'm just going into more spec scripts of Zombieland 3, but like they go out and do like the studio tour in Hollywood, and they're like, hey, here's the Full House cast. Like they all wound up getting infected, and then the doors were shut on them. So it's just like Danny Tanner just like sweeping, and there's like still a laugh track, and he's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like Kimmy Gibbler like walks through like the door, like busts in through the door, and she's just like covered in blood, and like they're like clapping and cheering. That could be good.
All right. Yeah. So like a cheesy like 90s like zombie thing going on. I could just see Danny like just like as a zombie humming the theme. Like
just like zombies picnicking in San Francisco. Yeah.
yeah,
that'd be funny.
like opening a picnic basket and putting like an arm or something.
like one of the zombies goes after John Stamos. He's the only one who's not a zombie yet, and he's like, not the hair. And then it's like laugh track, laugh track, laugh track.
Yeah, he's so committed to his hair that he's still alive, but not his kids or his wife.
And you could have Joey just walking around as a zombie going, world, and he's just like, oh man, you could do a lot with that.
All right.
Spec scripts. We gotta write spec scripts.
Zombies. Let's do it.
Yeah. That'd be good. So all right, what do we do with wrapping up here? Social media, Weiliotis on Twitter, the Weiliotis podcast on
check us
Facebook,
out.
Instagram.
Check us out. I mean, obviously, if you're listening, you probably know of our website because that's a good directory. So far, on our website is kind of just a directory, but you can go there. You can find pretty much, or like, I think we're on like 30 services at this point.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and we had 150 downloads, which is awesome.
Yeah,
we're gonna have more guests coming up. Hopefully we don't have to do too many more like catch up episodes. We're gonna keep trying to go, every single week. I don't know what we're gonna do next week. We have no idea.
No, we don't. But I think we'll think of something good. And like Mikey said, we have guests slated. We have a bunch of ideas in the works of what we want to do. So yeah, check out our website if you haven't already, or I mean, especially our social media accounts like Facebook or Instagram. Obviously, especially we're on YouTube too. Obviously, you could be watching this video. If you are, you can comment below. Really, any platform you can comment on our videos and let us know what you think. If you have comment on the movies, or if you have any recommendations for maybe what you might want to see us discuss.
If you want to come on the podcast, I'm
Or
trying
if
to
you
get
wanna come on, sure.
Yeah,
Let
I'm
us
trying
know.
to get a couple B-list directors on the podcast. I'm working hard to get those on here. So, yeah, I mean, we also are just trying to get anybody. With everything being on camera these days, we're kind of like, hey, if we can get, somebody from, a pretty decent sized movie on here, then why not go for it?
Yeah.
So we're gonna keep reaching out to celebrities on Instagram. We want to get the Psycho Gorman cast and crew on here at some point.
A full cast interview. That'd be great. Because, man,
Yes.
Psycho Gorman, I still think about that movie a lot.
Me
Like,
too. Are you gonna buy the Hunky Boys DVD?
I pre-ordered it like a month
Did
ago.
you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like literally
yeah.
like 2 days after we recorded that episode, I got it because I'm like, I have to own this movie. I'm like, there's no way I can't not own this movie.
I'm gonna talk for Tom and I. We're gonna do a giveaway on this podcast. You and I are gonna do a giveaway at episode 10 or 20, I don't know, where whoever like retweets our video the most or does something will get a DVD of all the movies we've covered so far. So
yeah.
we'll buy you a cat.
Funded by Mikey Will himself. He's such a generous guy.
I will rent all of them through Redbox for you.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So I mean, I definitely would love to do that. No, I mean, I also want to start buying them myself too. That is the goal, is to buy them myself.
Oh yeah.
I want to start like every episode we do, hold up the DVDs and start building out my collection more. But yeah, follow us on social. Any closing words? Any zombie closing words or anything?
I'll say now, this has been a fun one. I've been wanting to do like kind of like a retrospective or like a collection where we talk about movies in a certain subject. So I think we covered some of the best zombie movies easily in this episode, and I know there's so many more to come, and so many more we personally probably haven't seen yet that we should. So again, recommend any zombie movie we haven't talked about, because we'll definitely do another episode in the future. And yeah, it's been a pleasure as usual. What can I say?
Thank you. We'll see you on social.
Bye.